Hello and welcome to Mashin and Microservices. And we're gonna have an interesting stream today, I hope. Let me kind of just recap the purpose of Mashin and Microservices. It's predominantly just an opportunity for folks to come and ask any questions that they may have about Golang, about microservices, about any of the videos that I'm kind of putting out on YouTube, or maybe just come along and hang and play some video games. It's entirely up to you. There's been some interesting stuff, I think, dropping at the moment. We've got Go 115, which is coming out, and some stuff like that. So if anybody has any questions for me, then drop those in the chat. I'm still plugging away at them fighting herds. Not doing so good, I have to say. It's proving
I will defeat you so soundly, your ancestors will become dizzy.
Pretty challenging. But so some of the things I think have been interesting, maybe I've kind of been working on. It seems like I've been working quite a bit this week. We've had quite a lot on. I mean, if anybody knows, sort of HashiConf is coming up, and we're kind of just getting geared up to that. So I've been doing a little bit of recording, some interviews and stuff, which has been interesting. So not a lot of time for coding. How are you all doing? You been getting out there doing anything interesting? Any interesting coding or anything like that? Anybody working on any? Wow, I'm getting my ass totally handed to me here. Sorry about that. My backside. Anybody? Yeah, I can't get these combos down. Hey D, how you doing? Hey Idir, good to see you both. I hope your weeks have been well. And well, what is here's a question for you all. Hey Paul, how's it going? Oh gosh, I need to concentrate. What has been would you say the interesting thing? There we go. Bye bye. Thing that you've maybe learned this week. Has anybody learned anything interesting? I've been sort of working on some interesting stuff, I think. Playing around with the Nomad scheduler, which has been kind of cool, and looking at auto scaling. Oh. Not enough time to play any video games though, I have to say, because, well, I think I finished work at, it was around about 2 a.m. Oh gosh, this one I'm getting handed to me. 2 a.m. last night, which was not a great deal of fun. And lecture 2, building microservices. I think I'll admit to you around the sort of the building microservices content, it definitely took me a while, I think, and I'm still working on it, but it took a little bit of time to kind of get into that and try and sort of improve the quality and things. I think the content, I would say, is good, but it takes a while to, I suppose, to learn things like around the video recording process and things like that, which was fun, but definitely think the later videos are better than the first one. Hey Felipe, how's it going? I hope you got your project working during the week there. So D, in project, in sort of the first episode, we were talking quite a bit about just getting, you're not going to be getting away with that little cow thing. We were talking a little bit about a very basic setup, but I think also to kind of try and help people understand the setup that I use as well, which I think is pretty straightforward. I'll be honest with you. I don't really use anything so fancy. when we start getting into episode 2, what I start to do is start to explain like a little bit more than the productionization example of, hey, you can create a microservice in 7 lines of code is, if you need a hello world microservice, then like 5 lines of code, it absolutely is. But I think web apps in Go, I don't know. I mean, I think web apps, if you kind of think about web apps as a kind of literally as a web application and not just a website, I think Go is pretty good. I'm a big fan of kind of building everything API driven and doing things with doing things with React.js. I really like React.js. There's something about it which kind of resonates with me. I think it's quite a nice setup. It's quite logical, and it seems to work out pretty good for me. And then of course I can build all of my web services and things like that out in Go, and build all my back-end services. So it's an approach which I've been using for a number of years, and I've not found anything better so far. The thing I like is like React and frameworks like that seem to be getting better and better all of the time, and Go just kind of ticks along and is doing pretty good. Trying to learn the difference between an API and a microservice, looking to build out a feature with a current project that will connect to a running service. KSubby, I would say there is no difference. The thing is, a microservice can be an API. A microservice could be like a front end as well, or it could just be a worker process. But it can also be an API. Generally, I think when people talk about microservices, what they're sort of talking about is scale, more so than anything else. What is micro? Well, that's a kind of a great question in itself. Maybe smaller than what you built yesterday. I don't know. There's a number of different arguments on that. But I think when we start to look at microservices and you think, well, what is micro? In my mind, micro is something which performs a unique function. It's maybe a specific division of work, something that's divided as a team ownership, as opposed to kind of contribution to a larger project. Let's have a look what we got. So we're saying allow users to change specific settings and service via a dashboard and connect payment processor. Yeah, I think that sounds like a great project. If you've I don't know, what's your hey, I mentioned how you doing. What front end frameworks are you fond of? Is it something something specific? I really dig GraphQL. Bear with me. I'm thinking. I do have a GraphQL project which I was kicking around, and I'm just trying to work out whether I can dig that out and walk through it. I tell you what I will do though. I will, if nobody's used this, let me try and explain to you what's going on with GraphQL. Not RAFQL. GraphQL. Okay. Let me just zoom that up. So GraphQL, where GraphQL kind of differs from RESTful with JSON, is that whereas JSON you have a sort of a structured query and response language, so you're potentially posting struts, or you're using the sort of the RESTful principles of URIs to be able to access data. You get what you're given. You're going to get back a collection of data. It's pretty much very, very rigid, with kind of exception that obviously you can do things like query the sizes of collections or queries and things like that you maybe want to return. But the data format is generally rigid. Now with GraphQL, the concept is that you're going to post some a query, a GraphQL query. So this this box here is a GraphQL query. And what you can do is you can be very specific about the data that you wish to be returned. Now, the benefits of that are, well, one is bandwidth. And that's especially important when you start dealing with sort of low bandwidth applications or maybe mobile platforms. Because even if you've got a good network connection, 4G or so on a mobile devices are not particularly great at doing lots of little incremental requests. With GraphQL as well, one of the concepts and one of the things that a lot of people apply it for is there's a concept called, have you heard of backends for front ends? Back end for front end. And I'm going to Google Sam Newman because I'm pretty positive I've read an amazing article. And this is the one from him. So the concept of the backend for front ends pattern is that you kind of have, you have a number of different APIs which get sort of aggregated, or you maybe do some data manipulation or something like that. So the concept here is this is the general way that you build a sort of an API. You'll have an API which does a desktop client and mobile client. More often than not, these things require data in very, very different ways, just because of the sort of the presentation. And this is not a bad solution. It allows you to kind of take that microservice approach because you're putting this kind of API layer in front of your microservices, and it allows you to kind of aggregate content. With the backend for front end pattern, instead of building this kind of singular API layer, then what you do is you build a number of different layers, and that allows you to kind of do this transformation. So, for example, the mobile client doesn't have the ability to present a great big block of text in one go. You've got to kind of click through to it. So then, well, you don't want to be displaying that immediately. You don't want to transfer it potentially because it's not good on bandwidth. Or you kind of maybe want to be looking at data ever so slightly differently. You might want some specific stuff in there. And this kind of a pattern is a very good one. It's something that I sort of very heavily recommend that folks use for interfacing applications to their microservice systems. Where I'm a big fan of GraphQL is that GraphQL kind of, in some ways, allows you to build a singular API, because what you can actually do is you can query the data that's being returned. It's not fixed. So, for example, if I don't want the description on something, I don't ask for it. If I want to get, let's say, a hero collection and then get a bunch of sub-queries, such as, well, this example here, we've got friends and things like that, then I can append that to the query. In the background, what you're doing is you're doing the implementation to fan this out into potentially multiple different services. So it's a really nice pattern. Very different to REST, but not terrifically so. Now, if anybody who's watching has a good recommendation for a good GraphQL client in Go, then please post up in the comments or in the chat there, because I've been looking for. I've tried a number of different clients, and I've not particularly found a really good one. I need to ask my buddy Eric about the one he used last time, which was quite nice. If you want to have an example of a GraphQL service, I am trying to remember the name of this repository. It's been a little while. There we go. So this is just an example GraphQL front-end application. And I will just... Oh, sorry, that is the front end. That's the React.js front end. Where is... There we go. There's the public API. So the public API is GraphQL. We are using GQL parser as a package, which is probably the best one that I have come across so far, but very much open to suggestions on that. The thing I like about this is it uses GraphQL Gen to be able to generate the servers, and I'll show you why that's important when you kind of look at some of the code. You end up implementing sort of quite a lot of, well, it's not nice code, dealing with a lot of specifically in Go interfaces, because you're dealing with dynamic types and you've got to return specific data. So it's yeah, the resolvers and stuff can be somewhat cleaner when you use a library like this. But yeah, check. I'll put a link into that as just as an example. But I am going to go through a full example of building one of these things out, because I really dig it, and I think it's a super interesting thing to see. How's everybody? Any questions for me? Why am I so bad at this game? Maybe. Well, it's because I work too much. Or I'm just completely talentless. I mean, one of the two. But this is a great game from an indie publisher. Great great net code. It's quite a deep fighting game. Oh, come on. And actually bloody hard as well for the kind of the I'm on the second easiest level here, and it's still gonna mash me all over this place. Has anybody picked up Go 115? Are we running this? I think the beta dropped Thursday. Wondering if there's anything interesting in there. I've not had a chance to look yet, because I have to say that there's a block of code in one of my projects which uses the Go template, which, and there was a change log on that, changing the behavior of one of the operands around, I think it was a comparator, but yeah, I've yet to get around and fix it.
You're not a warrior yet. You have much to learn. Round 2. Fight.
So another little bit of interesting sort of background, I think, on this game is it was originally a rip-off of My Little Pony, which you might be able to tell there, but the kind of one of the original designers of after there was a small cease and desist on that, they eventually kind of collaborated, and I think that's kind of cool. Wow. I need to get oh, there we go. I certainly am.
Final round. Fight.
Yeah, so some other interesting stuff. So Go VS Code extension joins the Go project. Anybody who watches the channel and seen any of my videos will know that I am I'm a pretty big fan of this extension. I think it's a really, really, really good tool, and it's lovely to see that the extension is now going to be part of the Go project. I think we'll kind of see some really good integrations because of this. At the moment, things are a little. I think you got to be tolerant in some ways, but it's also free software. But this is very good news. I'm pretty excited about that and see where those things are going to go. Oh wow, that was a bit. That was rude. This game is definitely brutal. Wow. Wow, that was bad timing. Well, oh darn. I should have I didn't take advantage of the. So if you do a double if you use the level 1 combo and then the level 3 straight away after, you can get this fiery mode, which seems to be pretty cool to me, but hey, so.
I hope you have been keeping up with your training. Coming at you. Ready? Fight.
So we will also have, I do apologize again about the second part to gRPC streaming, and I've just not had a great deal of time this week to do anything. So I will try my very best to get that done. I was actually trying to do it this afternoon, but I'm also trying to upgrade the disk in my computer because I am using a backup disk for all my videos, which is a couple of years, well, it's unknown years old because I found it in a cupboard, and I'm a little bit worried that it's going to pack in on me. So I've got quite a bit of housekeeping to do. So when it comes to sort of content, what sort of stuff are folks really interested in? Specifically from microservices, I get a lot of requests for things like authentication. Obviously, GraphQL seems to be a bit of a recurring thing. Is there anything else? Is there some specific technologies or tooling as well that folks might be interested in? Like, I don't know if I've done anything on Kubernetes. I've done some stuff on Kubernetes in HashiCraft, but not nothing particularly in there. cannot get that combo done. Oh. We got beat again.
My mama don't raise no fools. Arizona wins.
Just check the performance of my computer that everything's working all right there. Seems to be fine.
I hope you have been keeping up with your training.
If anybody has them fighting herds and wants to have an online game, I'd be well up with that. Oh, let's have a look. Terraform. Oh, cool. I'm glad you like those. They were they were a little bit of fun. What's my WSL terminal setup? Oh, okay, I can show you that. Desktop. So I use, if I can get my mouse to go over there, and I can zoom that up a little so you can see it. Oh, thanks, thanks, mouse. I use a trackball, and well, as it turns out, I probably want to clean it because it's a little bit sticky. So my terminal setup, I use ZSH, and I would say fairly vanilla. I don't think anything sort of particularly complicated. If I can kind of well, this will be a harsh lesson in life if I've got any secrets in my ZSH config. So let's dig into that. Vim ZSH RC. Let's have a look. So I'm just kind of using the antigen plugin for ZSH. That just allows you to load in some libraries. I'm loading a bundle for syntax highlighting and spaceship prompt, so that kind of gives the styling there. Plugins wise, there's a bunch of plugins you can use which are pretty good. I don't tend to use anything other than just the Git one. It's nice for me to see which branch I'm on. A bunch of different paths set up there. I'm setting my my browser so that XDG Open will work correctly between WSL2 and Windows. Visual editor, I use Vim. And then here what I do is I actually use a YubiKey. So one of these little things, this is the spare one, for my SSH keys. So I don't actually keep my SSH key on my computer as such. I have it in a sort of on an external key. So what I do with that, to be able to kind of make it work, you've got to kind of proxy through the SSH key from GPG Windows into WSL, which is it's a whole world of pain that I never really want to go into again. And that's pretty much it. I use a couple of convenience commands because I feel like quite often I need to wipe out my Docker environment. So I've just got a convenience command which does something similar to Docker prune, but slightly more aggressive. TF-YOLO, which you should never use in production, but Terraform apply auto approve. And that's pretty much it. From a sort of a color scheme perspective, I forget which color scheme I use, to be honest with you. But Yeah, that's the scheme. It'll be a variation on something that's been grabbed from the internet. Even for the VS Code, Terraform plugin was doing auto Terraform format and save. Yeah, Terraform format is a really great thing. I mean, it's heavily inspired by it's heavily inspired by Go format. Obviously, there that what you kind of have is this nice little approach. I'm just gonna add a folder into here. Just trying to find I just want a temp folder, really. Don't want anything fancy. Temps sounds good enough. So in here, let me add a new file, and I'm going to add main.tf. Okay, so then I could do resource, and I'm just going to call it ABC. Resource. Oh gosh, I need to probably create a real one. It might not. It might let me get away with it. Let's have a look. So we can do test, the name ABC, and then of course we can add some parameters. So I could say 1 equals 2. And with Terraform format, what's going to happen is all of that sort of will be nicely sort of formatted into a sort of a standard format. So should have that file there. Terraform format main.tf. Oh, I didn't save the file. But you can see there that we can do a bunch of different stuff. So we can actually write the file and various different things. Do a little bit of syntax validation, linting, and stuff like that. But it's a nice tool to have. Save you a bunch of effort. We can see there, look, we're getting error and it's telling me a bunch of stuff, which is kind of nice. A bit of linting. You were trying to show the Go project in Z shell and the one above the arrow, but it. Oh, okay. So the bear with me. So D, these kind of like glyphs here. Is that what you're meaning? So these are. It is a font, and I forget which font it is, but it's an emoji font, an open source emoji font. I could probably dig into my settings to find that out, but. Yeah, if you want things like the sort of the Powerline font is a standard one you can use, but yeah, hack with Powerline. These symbols are not in standard fonts ordinarily. Oh. Tom, I've got a bunch of videos on console on the HashiCorp website, which kind of go into things probably a little bit better than, but I can also cover some specific stuff if you would like. It really isn't a problem in the slightest. Finally, we get that air combo from So the thing is about this game, oh gosh, I'm not paying. I look across at the chat and then you've got to get your combos, I think. But oh, it also feels like I have combo time. Yeah, it feels like this thing's trying to cheat me. I'll do some stuff on console, maybe in all things microservices. I did do a console video on terminating gateways just about a week or so ago. What sort of specific stuff around console are folks interested in? Kind of basic service discovery with virtual machines, or service mesh with Kubernetes, service mesh with virtual machines? Is there anything which is specifically interesting? A reason? You don't need a reason to start come up to use console and Vault. So you know, I kind of I like AWS. I think you look at some of the technology that AWS sort of put out. I mean, well, not just AWS, all of the cloud providers. I think they do a lot of good work. I'm a huge advocate of managed data stores. I think when you're starting to build systems, you've got to be thinking about what you can maintain and what you can't maintain. And I think managed data stores should be the first things that you start looking at, and managed schedulers as well. Some of the first things you start looking at to get away from the complexity, because the way that the cloud vendors set those up around backups, restoration, it becomes their problem. It costs you a little bit more, but well, maybe not. I mean, if you're using these sort of multi-tenanted systems in AWS, such as Aurora DB and things like that, you might end up paying a lot less. You got to remember, if you're paying for a virtual machine, if you want to get the value out of that, you've got to be running at a near saturation, which is very difficult. Whereas when you're running multi-tenanted, you take into account for everybody else, so you don't. It doesn't matter whether you're doing 2 or 3 queries a second one day and then 200 or 300 the next. It's a really efficient way of doing it. There are a huge number of differences between sort of Vault and AWS Secret Manager, which I'm not going to go into. I'm just wearing a HashiCorp t-shirt, probably because I didn't change it from yesterday, maybe. But it's a good system, and I think Vault though does have a lot of extra capabilities. But maybe watch this space on that. Prefer them Fargate backed ECS over Kubernetes. Yeah, I look at Kubernetes and I think it's a wonderful tool. I feel that as a developer that there's something missing, and that I kind of want something to sit on top of Kubernetes that before I interact with it, not dealing with Kubernetes itself feels a little bit too primitive for me as a developer. I want paths. I want to get on with writing code. I don't want to have to spend too much of my brain power on infrastructure when I've got bugs to write. Database migrations are quite possibly one of the things that I dislike the most, Tom. That they are big old scary things. But I'll wish you the best on that one. I'm sure it'll go fine.
If fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight. Round 1.
Yeah, you must get beat. Is basic service discovery is the fundament of console. Actually, all of the new features that have gone into console are backed by those kind of primitives of the key value store and service discovery. We tend not to talk about them so much anymore because folks are now looking for sort of higher level features such as service mesh and things like that. Also, it depends on which platform you're using, because if you're kind of using Kubernetes, then you don't necessarily need console service mesh for console for service discovery, because Kubernetes has its own service discovery. So it's maybe though even those features were some of the first features that I used when I was sort of building microservice systems for the first time about 5 years ago. They're not so much in demand anymore. Do I have any advice for? Oh, bear with me. Oh, just put that on mute. Do I have any advice for a new developer who wants to get into using Golang? That's a good question. I think code is the easiest thing. That sounds terrible, but just kind of getting out there and doing. I think I always recommend, regardless of what you want to do, whether you want to get into Go, whether you want to be getting into looking at GraphQL, whether you want to be building microservices and sort of service architecture, or console or Terraform or any of those things, what you kind of need to be doing is you need to be getting out and you need to be practicing. So one of the things that I heartily recommend is taking up just a fun project. So work on something which is maybe not related to work, because then it doesn't feel like work. So it's a little bit fun. Create something interesting, something cool. I don't know, like let's say you live in a house and you got a garage door which you can open automatically. Why not hack the garage door and write a Go program on a Raspberry Pi to interface with the door opener, so you can then open it with your cell phone via geolocation. So whenever you pull into the drive, Bluetooth. So Bluetooth proximity, when you pull into the driveway, it opens your garage door for you automatically. So things like that I think are kind of fun. They're useful because that's like hardware hacking or home hacking, but it helps you a lot when you kind of want to relate to something. It doesn't feel like a chore, and I think that's the key thing that with learning, that sometimes learning can feel like a chore if you don't have application for that learning immediately. But yeah, I think William, find yourself a project and start hacking away. It could be anything. It doesn't matter if you're not trying to get seed funding for your, that would be amazing, but from a VC or something like that. So it could be the silliest, most pointless thing to anybody else. It doesn't matter. As long as it relates to you, you have fun doing it and you learn something from the process. Free Code Camp, there's some great stuff on there. There's some great stuff on YouTube as well. There's a number of wonderful resources out there, which don't take much. You've obviously GopherCon. All of the videos from the conference are published, and there's some wonderful videos there. GoLab, wonderful videos. GopherCon UK and Europe. You'll find a bunch of different good stuff there. How do I spend my Sundays, D? Well, I mean, it very much depends. I try not to work on a Saturday, even though today I did find myself doing bits and pieces just purely and simply because I had to do some, as I say, some chores on my computer. I needed to move some files off a backup disk so I could build a RAID 1 So I've got a little bit of redundancy. I'm worried that the disk fails and I lose all my files, which they're just video archive files. I don't really want to back them up anywhere too much, but I don't trust that disk. So I try not to work on a Saturday. I have to go to the supermarket and do some household chores. At the moment, because of COVID-19, things are obviously take a little bit longer than they normally would. So if I need to go to the recycling and things like that, it takes like an hour instead of 10 minutes. But kind of things like that. Sundays I try to do some writing. I try to sit down and do some recording and things like that. But yeah, I have to admit, I do spend quite a lot of time working, which is something I enjoy doing. I'm not various different little bits and pieces, but lots of gaming. I got my Nintendo Switch. I'll sit and kick back, read a book, maybe play a couple hours of Switch or something. Just kind of chill. William, I'm going to stick my neck out and say you're going to do it. If you want to be a Go developer full time, I'm going to say that you will be a Go developer full time. I have faith in you, my friend, and there's no secret sauce. It's literally just get out there, muck about with some code, and if you enjoy what you're doing, it'll all help. You'll get through there. Tom, what audio interface am I using? I use so I have it's the Rode Pod Mic, which is relatively inexpensive for XLR microphones. About $100 or so, £100 maybe. And I use a Go XLR to USB mixer. The Go XLR allows me to do things like feed my microphone and have it on a slider, so I can kind of make it a little bit quieter like this. And it goes louder again. What I can also do is I can do things like fade in system audio or background music or something like that. So if I spin up this fader, you can hear the game audio, and I mean kind of just feed that down a little bit there. But yeah, it's a nice thing. They're not so expensive, I think. I really appreciate that, William. That's very, very kind of you to say so. I genuinely enjoy microservices as an architectural pattern. I really enjoy building them in Go, and hopefully, if it helps a few folks, then that's amazing. Personal note: this COVID-19. I'm wondering if I should try keeping longer hair for a while. Any advice on that? I am the laziest person in the world. Raj, I really am. I'm also very tall and very skinny, so I don't really suit short hair. So there's a combination there that short hair doesn't really work on me. So a crew cut would make me look like a matchstick, quite literally. And longer hair, I think, is actually quite relatively low maintenance. So I say go for it. I say the world needs more long-haired folks. And at the moment, however, you might regret that because it's not easy getting a haircut. But if you've got low standards like me, just get a pair of scissors out of the cupboard. Do it yourself. It's fine. It's easy. Maybe. I'm a professional. Said nobody ever. Catch you later, Felipe. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, the SM7B is an incredible microphone. They've got a really lovely sound, and a lot of folks, you'll see a lot of YouTubers and people, certainly the folks that I watch, pretty much everybody seems to use the SM7B. It's a little bit more expensive than the Go XLR, so that's why the Go XLR, the Rode Pod Mic, and I was watching an interview or a sort of product demonstration with a chap called Harris Houle, which I think has got a great channel around kind of technology and things like that for YouTube streaming. And he did a review anyway between the SM7B and the Go XLR. Sorry, the Go XLR, I keep calling it that. And the Rode pod mic and actually with a little bit of EQ. He was, you know, the sound is negligible, but the pricing was a big difference. I probably could have stretched to it. I mean, I could maybe have even I probably could have expensed it, but you know, you gotta just because I'm not paying for it myself, I still gotta watch the company money I'm spending. Any advice on Go project structure? So there's a number of different schools of thought around Go project structure. I will recommend Bill Kennedy's advice on this. Not that Bill Kennedy. Where are we? Am I making typos? That's the Bill Kennedy that I'm looking for. Now let me see if I can find Bill's project structure. There we go. This video here. I'll put this in the notes.
Have you always wanted to learn to code but don't know where to start?
We got a Udemy advert. I'm going to watch this because, you know, hey, adverts. On that, all of the adverts on
in today's video, I'll be
my channel. I'm donating for the next 3 months, maybe even more, maybe 6 months. It's not a huge amount of money. It's only like $50 a month or something in revenue. All of the money goes to charity anyway, but for the next N months until I can find a better charity, which there are none right now, everything's going to Black Lives Matter. So, but yeah, but Bill Kennedy, check out the way that he describes project structure. There's a lot of good stuff. It very much depends whether you're building an application or a package, or whether you're building a server. So if you're building a server, then some people like to put command in a command folder. Some people like to put different things in, like, you know, organizing in different ways. I think the key thing is that you got to get your packaging right. The thing that I like about, oh sorry, I didn't even have the right screen up there. The thing I like about Golang is in some ways it will tell you if you've got your packaging wrong, because you'll end up with circular references or something that you can't import, and that's generally a sort of a hint that you're sort of getting things wrong. I do actually have a YouTube subscription, but not on this browser, not signed in. But yeah, Arden Labs Go training. If you have Safari Books account, you can see all of Bill's Ultimate Go training there. Check this out. There's nobody better, in my humble opinion. Training material as well as all. Oh, that's interesting. This is really cool. Now doing a course online, training courses. This is very good value, in my humble opinion. That's really cool. Yeah, big shout out there to Bill and the Arden Labs team. You need to get paid for making videos. I appreciate that. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I want to be able to try and help people, and just share the information that I have, which I don't have the opportunity to. I can share some of the stuff through my work, but you know, things like the sort of the microservices side of things, it gives me an opportunity to do that. I look at all of this stuff in terms of writing and video, and if I wanted to spend this time earning money, I wouldn't. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be doing this sort of thing, because I don't think you make. Maybe you could get rich from churning YouTube videos on Go Out, but maybe not mine. The kind of the primary rationale on why I decided that I was going to monetize the YouTube channel was because I could, right? And I get the pop-up one day and it's like, hey, you've reached so many subscribers and so many views, you can actually monetize your channel. So I looked at that and I'm like, well, you know, I can looking at the number of views my videos get, I'm like, I'm not going to make a fortune out of this. But at the same time, I'm like, that would be money that would disappear anyway. It wouldn't, that wouldn't be money that existed. So if I monetize, I can take that sort of money, and I don't want it, so I can give it to charity. And I say it's not a lot, but it's better than nothing, right? So that's kind of why I do it. I'm not planning on doing this sort of thing for a living for a while. I'm quite happy with quite happy in my day job right now, and future plans, I want to go and teach at university. So maybe get yourself over to a UK university, do a post-grad or something, and we can hang out, and I can maybe even teach you there. That'd be cool, right? Cool for me. Am I going to do a tutorial on Kafka for microservices? Yeah, I'm definitely going to cover the patterns around asynchronous pub/sub and things like that, because it's a very important pattern. I think sort of event-driven microservices offer quite a lot. I'll be honest with you, I find there's quite a lot of sort of cognitive load with event-driven microservices. They're also they're very easy to test in isolation. They're very difficult to kind of test end to end as a complete system. I find maybe it's inexperience, but yeah, I'm definitely going to cover that because it's an important pattern, which I do. I use myself, maybe not to the nth of everything as an asynchronous pattern, but there's definitely a need for using things like Kafka, pub/sub, worker queues, all of that sort of great architectural patterns there. Yeah, the Go project structure. Let me see if I can find a link. There was definitely a blog post that Bill wrote. Maybe I can even ask Bill one day if he'd be so kind to do a little guest lecture or something. That would be cool. This is Go modules. Okay, so this looks like a pretty decent resource. So kind of going through things like reserving a command folder. So that's going to be your sort of your executable for starting the application. Internal, obviously, things that you don't want to expose as a package to anybody else. /PKG, this is a sort of a convention. I would argue that if you only have a package, then you wouldn't kind of use this. Vendor, I don't think this is a pattern which is kind of used so much anymore. The trend is obviously with Go mod and things like that, moving away from vendor folders, vendor directories, and stuff like that. I think a lot of stuff is fairly common sense. I think the kind of the question is predominantly on how hard should you package? What should be a package and what shouldn't be a package? And I think if you can use a package like a noun, so if you think about it in terms of if you find yourself doing something like, I don't know, SQL, creating a function called SQL get, then you sort of maybe have to ask yourself, well, should that be a SQL package which implements a get function or a get method? So I think that there's hints around where you should package. I probably create too few packages. I generally get like nervous when I start seeing a lot of files in a folder. Again, a lot of that's just down to my sort of cognitive load, but I genuinely think sort of following a sort of test-driven approach with your code will dictate a lot of that stuff. Fault injection in Go. Oh, that's really interesting idea. Sorry, I'm thinking whilst talking there. Yes. Well, Well, I think if we were going to look at fault injection Go, do you mean application, anybody? So, for example, do you want to be doing outside-in tests on an application to check the robustness of an application? So, for example, if you've got a microservice application which 3 services in a chain, you might want to inject some faults at some point in order to kind of simulate and test the reliability patterns or the error handling or something like that. That could be really interesting. I wouldn't say I know better than anybody. I think I have an opinion. I wouldn't always say I'm right, and I'm always happy to listen to somebody tell me I'm wrong. And I wouldn't always say I'm right. I wouldn't say I was right very often at all, actually. Whoops. Apart from all my videos, they're always right. Everything in there, pure fact, honest. No, seriously. Let's have a look. Yeah, what we need to do on approach of the software engineering process. Software engineering process is, it's difficult. I think that there's probably some good stuff around fault injection with the Istio project. There's, or maybe Chaos, sort of the Chaos tools. Might be something interesting from Gremlin or from the Netflix Chaos Monkey team, because a lot of that sort of stuff was designed to kind of, rather than sort of looking at the internal mechanisms, you're testing the internal mechanisms by stressing the system or making the system handle things which are unexpected. I find that a lot of people, when you're writing code, you don't deliberately go out to write bugs. And if you kind of take a test-driven approach, even if you go 100% TDD, that doesn't necessarily mean that your code's going to be 100% error-free, and more often than not, it won't be. You're still going to have errors in your code, because what happens is you tend to find that there are missing features, so things that were misunderstood, maybe poorly defined, things like that. That's tend to be where you get a lot of edge cases. Exploratory testing using chaos injection and stuff like that is really good, because the sort of the problem with tests is, more often than not, you're probing what is known, and unexpected bugs are all sometimes unknown. So yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna dig into that, because I'm very keen to play with that myself, and I think that would be a good learning exercise for me as well, to maybe cover a couple of videos on that. But I do have to say I can't qualify it with any production use, because those techniques didn't exist the last time I was building production microservice systems, which was a couple of years ago. Well, it's a Saturday evening. I think I might go take my dog for a little bit of a walk, and maybe dig into a tub of ice cream, maybe watch a little bit of Crunchyroll or Netflix, and I hope you all can do the same. I want to thank you, as always, for watching. I want to sort of say, please like, and Monia, you're. I was just about to bounce. I've had quite a late night working last night, and then quite an early morning, because the dog doesn't wake me up. But thank you so much, as I say, that your support really, really matters. It's an absolute big help. And again, every video that gets watched, that's a tiny little fraction of a cent or whatever it is to go to charity, but it's money that wouldn't be there otherwise. And I think that's important. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And as for new content, please subscribe, like, hit the bell button. I'm going to try and do these sort of every week, just so folks can ask questions on content, any sort of things that they've been struggling with during the week. Please just come along and ask them. I'm more than happy to kind of go through and debug some code with you or something like that on stream if it's helpful. A question about how do you know if a function takes more time to execute than another? Benchmarking, yeah. That's absolutely correct. So benchmarking in Go is absolutely what you want to be using. Now, what benchmarking tests will do in Go is they are going to allow you to profile your application, so you can do things like this. So you can test how long it takes for Fibonacci. You can test for things like the memory allocation and stuff like that. Now, I don't know, maybe what you kind of also want to be looking at if you're interested in actually the ins and outs of your production code. So I found a really interesting bug, which is probably the last blog post I wrote. Nicholas. Which was really interesting. And I found an application was running slow. And I'm looking at this. And I'm looking at this code. And I'm like, why is this code slow? This service isn't really doing anything, yet it's using a huge amount of CPU. That was a complete gut feel. Okay, I didn't have any qualified evidence on that, but I had a gut feel that this thing was running slow. So I dug into it. And I found that by removing a single format.println message, I reduced the CPU consumption of the service by 90%. Now, that's an extreme case because the service wasn't really doing anything, and this one print line was actually the bulk of it. But what it also turned out, which was really interesting, was that the problem itself was down to a gRPC serialization, which is actually just quite slow. So the way that I went through that to discover what was going on was to use ppprof. And that's a Go tool. So for example, here you can see the CPU consumption. So this is unusually high for what this should be. It's not actually doing anything, especially for quite a low number of requests per second. And kind of looking at it in comparison, again, there was definitely something going on. But the ppprof application, what this allows you to do is it allows you to hook into your code. So you can inject a package into your Go code. It puts in some hooks which will allow you to do things like record memory allocations, the time it takes for functions to execute, the number of times, what they are as a percentage of the overall, and it's incredibly useful. So this is absolutely right. So JSON.unmarshal and JSON.new encoder do use more memory, and the reason for that is that JSON unmarshal will basically buffer everything in memory before it starts to process the JSON, whereas the new decoder is reading and writing from a stream. So the number of bytes allocated in memory and the CPU consumption is much higher with JSON unmarshal. In a lot of cases, it doesn't I don't think it matters so much. But you know, like in my humble opinion, there's not a great deal of usability benefit of using JSON.unmarshal over new decoder. I guess it depends if you've got a stream or not. But yeah, it was an interesting thing. But you know, tools like the new decoder, you can find that information out with a benchmark. So if you're running benchmark tests, you'll be able to see the allocations, the memory consumption, and the speed by which your functions are executing. You can then kind of go through and you can say, well, what if I change this? It does pre-allocating a slice of a different size help? Does, you know, I can't think, modifying a loop differently. You might not be exiting out of a loop early enough or something like that. You can find a lot of things. Benchmarks are also useful for looking at degradation across time for your application code. You can see is it getting slower, and if so, why? Is it a mistake or is it deliberate? But ppprof anyway, it allows you to add this, and then you can use the Go tool, ppprof. And then what happens is you get these charts out the other side. And the kind of the chart is going to show you the sort of the consumption. So you can see here that we've got these great big boxes around Golang protobuf proto write string, and that's using you know, a huge amount of my CPU. And then you can kind of drill into this call chart. And you can see, well, you know, it's format fprint f is calling write string, and then it's do fprint and it's buffer write. But you know, you can kind of drill through, and you're reading this backwards, so you can understand where this is coming from. When you kind of look at things like this, it's a really great tool. I definitely recommend anybody who's have a play around with ppprof and just run it against your application. You can get some truly cool information out. So this was my first profile. You can see here that there's a huge amount of memory. You can kind of see all of the sort of the overall allocations that have been running and stuff like that. Again, you kind of trace this through, and it was a reflect, a two-string method on a protobuf. It's just not particularly efficient. When I look at after I've modified it, oops. There's literally nothing unusual going on there. The fact that we're seeing syscall, which is taking up the bulk of my application, means that this app is not doing anything, which was actually the truth. I kind of found about that JSON and Marshall and the new encoder. I mean, it was partly a gut instinct, but when started looking into this, I do think that it mentions in the Go documentation for the HTTP encoding JSON. I think it. Where are we? Go docs are incredible. I really admire whoever writes these. But it explains how the sort of the marshaller and the unmarshaller work. I think actually the new decoder, maybe it doesn't. I can't remember. It's been a while. But yeah, check this out. If you come to the UK, you don't need to beg me. It would be my absolute honor. So maybe if I don't travel so much anymore. I have my mother-in-law is quite elderly, so leaving my wife my wife cares for my mother-in-law, so having to travel is not particularly easy anymore. So I tend to I try to stay at home as much as I can rather than flying around all over the place. But cup of coffee or a cup of tea, I love coffee. That would be awesome. Alrighty, again, thank you for watching. I think I will definitely pick up some streams around some great ideas here. I'm definitely going to pick up some stuff around fault injection. I want to try maybe play with some of these chaos injection tooling. Definitely going to look at something around packaging, because I think that will make a really important and interesting video for folks. Yeah, structuring I think is in some ways sort of Marmite around how you do applications. I think there's a bunch of people who would have differing opinions on that, but I have a way that works for me. Thank you all again for watching. It is an absolute pleasure, and I will hope to see you next time. But for now, catch you all later.